Are you the mom of teens? Are you anguished? Do you feel hopeless? Do you feel like you're the only one, like nobody understands you and you can't really tell your friends because your kids were so great up until recently, and you're in this dark place by yourself and maybe your husband or significant other and maybe just one good friend? Well, first of all, let me tell you, you are not alone. Second, please know that there is hope, and there's lots of it. Maybe you don't feel it right now, but there is. And third, there are resources out there to help you. I do not have all the answers. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a professional. I am just a mom, and I don't have one teen or two teens. I have three. At the time of this video, they are 14, 15, and 17. And let me tell you, this year is starting fine, but last year and part of the one before, I had a really dark time as a mom. I will not disclose all the details out of respect for my kids, but I will tell you that I was that mother that felt scared that her kids would not love her, scared because her kids were acting and speaking as if they didn't love her. And at one point, I really thought, I really doubted my parenting skills. I learned a lot during that hard, dark time as a mom. And I also know that it might not be completely over because each child is a different universe and we just don't know what they're going to do. But that's okay, because now I have more tools, I have the experience, and well, I know that I can get through it somehow. So first of all, I'm going to recommend, if you're here because you found the video searching for help as a mom of teenagers, I'm going to recommend two books to you that really saved my life. One of them is The Grown-Up's Guide to Teenage Humans by Josh Shipp. This book was sent to me a year and some ago to review it, and I was so happy when I was reading it. I was like, I wish I'd had this book before. The subtitle of the book is How to Decode Their Behavior, Develop Unshakable Trust, and Raise a Respectable Adult. The book is not condescending at all. It's not preachy. It's not religious, which for me was important. It does have values and morals, but it is written by a person who was raised in foster homes, and now he's a motivational speaker and helps kids and parents. And I super recommend the book, and I will tell you a little bit of what I found in it. Another one, I bought it on my iPad or my Kindle app, and it is more for moms of girls, and I have two, and it's again, this one is like, it's really helpful. The title is Untangled: Guiding Teenage Girls Through the 7 Transitions into Adulthood by, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Lisa Damour, PhD. Now, both books gave me certain insights that I'm not going to go into the whole books because I think you can read them yourself, and that's it. But basically, I learned that I had to go back into my own teenagehood. I'm 55, and I had to go back into trying to feel what I felt when I was their age, and what struggles and what frustrations and everything I had. And I honestly had forgotten what a terrible teenager I was. And I have not discussed the details with my kids. Maybe I will one day. But I hear a lot of parents where they're like, no, but I was not a horrible teenager. So the fact that their kids go through this period baffles them because they don't know, they can't relate to it. For better or for worse, I could relate to the frustration. I could relate to the angst, and I could go back and goodness, and go and ask my dad for forgiveness even as an adult for what I did when I was a young girl. One thing I learned is that no matter how the kids are acting out, what they're doing, how helpless and hopeless you feel, something that is vital is to continue taking care of you. And I realized that it was not my kids' place to for them to hear me say, well, I am sad because you did this, I am feeling rejected, or that was for me to sort out. And I found help in Facebook groups for moms of teens, and just the fact it was like a support group where I just Googled on Facebook support groups for moms of teens, and I found a couple. And just the fact of engaging, and even not even engaging, just being there and listening to the stories of other moms, because I was sure that I was the only one going through that. And it made me feel less alone. Then I continued my self-care, which I've always been very into my entire life, and I practice yoga, so I doubled up on that. I doubled up on meditation. I saw a therapist for a short while. My kid, the one who was having issues at the time, also went to therapy, and eventually the other two as well. But I am a strong advocate of therapy if you find the right therapist and you're comfortable. But again, the thing that I found most important was to not let on, or not dump that on my kids. I mean, they're already having a hard time as teens, and it is not, and it's a very hard thing to deal with as a mom, that the way that their behavior is hurting you is really not their responsibility, so to speak. Of course, they need to be respectful. Of course, I demanded of all of them respect and certain kinds of behavior and things that I would not tolerate. But on the other hand, it was my responsibility to take care of me, to vent with my husband, to vent with friends, with my family, but not directly tell the kid, hey, what you're doing is affecting me. After we got through the turmoil time, then that's a different story. Looking back, you can say, wow, yeah, I was not in a good place, and I admit it now. When I realized that I simply had to live with that fear of my kids not liking me or not loving me, especially since I grew up without a mom, that's when I started to look outside and in these books for some answers. Something that I found very intriguing and very common sense about this book in particular is that when kids, like there was, again, I won't say which one it was, but one of my kids wanted to kind of drop out of school and do their own thing, leave the house, emancipate, and just not be anywhere near me because apparently I stressed them out. And I decided that if my child was not going to like me and was going to hate me, I was going to do what I set out to do when I wanted to have kids, and that was be a mother. Because my kids have friends, they have peers and all this, they don't need another one. It was a very, very hard thing to do, because I thought, well, if I take away privileges like car keys and, tell them, no, I'm not going to let you emancipate. No, I'm not going to let you leave the house. And, my job is to take care of you until you're 18, and then you can do whatever you want. But up until then, I'm your parent. My kid said, why won't you let me be? Why won't you let me go? I remember saying really calmly, even though I was dying inside, because I'm not going to give up on you. And that was that. And that was one of the things that I kind of read about in these books, which was the fact that kids think that they want freedom, but they don't know how to get it. They don't really know yet that freedom isn't free, and that they're going to have to, later on, if they leave where they're living with you, they're going to have to, make money and deal with real life problems and stuff like that. But they don't know this. Their frontal lobe apparently doesn't develop until they're 23 at least. So that means that they don't have perspective, they don't have experience, and they or we, when we were that age, we didn't have that perspective, we didn't have that experience. And the parent is the person who has to be there to make the decisions that the kid is unable to make for him or herself, because they're not ready to. And even if the kid dislikes you, hates you, complains, etc., again, I took that decision of saying, well, I'm going to just say, put my foot down and say, this is how it's going to be. And that's the end of that. I did expect my teen to go on a full-blown, well, what? But when I set those parameters, actually, she kind of broke down and came back home slowly. And I mean it in a, not really because she didn't leave, but I mean like in her heart. Now, of course, that teen doesn't want to even consider or talk about that period that she went through, but I try to tell her that it is normal. It's nothing to be ashamed of, as I went through a awful teenagehood, and I believe that our past is what makes us who we are today, and our mistakes, if we learn from them, shape who we are today. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about having acted out as a teen or what have you. Another thing that I always thought, well, why argue with kids about little things? Why not just let them do whatever they want in certain areas, right? So one of the books that I read was mentioning that if you don't have little discussions or have some kind of pushback with your teen, they're just going to keep on trying to push the boundaries farther and farther because you're not pushing back. And that's what they need. They need pushback from you. Having a little discussion about, well, I don't like, maybe you shouldn't wear your hair like that. Maybe you should wear it differently. The fact that they argued a little with you about the hair is possibly going to prevent them from doing way worse things than acting out with their hair or some minor thing to get that pushback from you. So the teens, when a parent just lets them do whatever to express themselves to ridiculous points, then the kid is just going to go pushing and pushing because they do need somebody to come in, and they don't know this, right? To kind of rein them in because they can't do it themselves. And the last thing I learned is that every teen has to break away, and I had to do that too with my own family, break away emotionally from their family. And sometimes that's done by acting out, by dismissing what you do, by not wanting to be seen with you, by being embarrassed about you, by doing the opposite of what you tell them. It depends on the child or the teen. But that is a very actually healthy and necessary part of growing up. And the problem is not really in the teen. It is with the parent, because it is really hard to deal with a full-grown toddler, because having a teen is almost like having the 2-year-old or the 3-year-old, but now instead of 2 or 3, they're taller than you, and they have opinions, and they can actually sometimes get in the car and drive away. So it's very different. I could go on forever talking about teenagehood and being a mom and all that, but I cried my eyes out. I really, really had a rough time that year. And again, I don't know that it's not going to happen again with a different teen. But however, the fact that the rebellious teen is, back to her not only normal self, but much improved and much more responsible, and a person who has a job and studies and plays sports and is thriving, and I admire all my children very much. Our relationship became way better than it ever was before. But I also had to learn that now, and this is in this book, I am no longer a parent in the way that I was when the kids were little and I had to feed them and I had to dress them and I had to change their diapers and all that. Now my job is to be more of a coach, and the coach kind of says do this, do that, and watches out for what they're doing to course correct or correct course, but you don't really have to do things for them. I do let my kids make their own mistakes and express themselves and all that, but I also realize that I'm their mother, and as a mother, I have to take care of me. I think the most important thing for you to hear right now, if you're here because you're suffering, is that you are not alone. You are not a bad mother. You are lovable, and you can get through this. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, we'll share it with your other mom friends, like it, subscribe to my channel, and maybe check out my other videos because I have a few other topics that you might be interested in. So thank you for stopping by.